Welcome back, penny stock billionaires. Today we will be talking about when is the time to be taking profits, to be getting out of a stock. Look, let's say one of our super stocks increases 500%, 800%, 2000%. When is the time that you get out? That is the key. Because you don't make money till you take a profit, okay? And also, of course, we're going to discuss when is the time to take a loss. We have not had that happen yet, but easily be assured that, look, we're in the venture capital game here. And, in the venture capital business, loss is a part of the business. I mean, if you want to go for these 1,000%, 2,000%, 5,000%, 100x returns, public venture capital type returns, you got to be willing to have a couple of losses. I'm talking about complete zero losses. And typically in the VC model, in the venture capital model, let's say you invest in 10 companies, they fully expect, 5, 6 of them, at least 3 or 4 of them to go completely bust, which means 0%. The thing goes completely zero. A couple of them will do okay, and then 1 or 2 of them are going to be huge home runs in the range of 1,000, 2,000, 10,000% type returns, 50x, that type of deal. But again, to get those types of returns, typically you got to be willing to take some risks. So when is the time to get out? But also, even more importantly, let's say you have a stock that's, it's increased from, 5 cents to $1, or even $2, or even, let's say just went up from 5 cents to 60 cents. When is the time to get out? I'll tell you right now. So, we're going to talk about Jim Jones, Koolaid, and Leonardo DiCaprio. Where does Leonardo DiCaprio fit into all of this? And Jim Jones. Okay, we'll get into that in just a second, so stay tuned. All right. So, number one, let's first talk about when should you take a loss. Typically with our stocks, the super stocks type of deals, I think it's very easy for a lot of these things to kind of drop 50% right out of the, not right out of the gate. I mean, usually our stocks kind of double or at least increase 50% right out of the gate, but subsequently, it's possible that some of these things can drop. Now, we have not had anything go to zero, but it's possible. You never know. So I think in terms of when to sell a losing stock, it's one of those things you kind of have to go with. Has the company really not delivered on what they said, or maybe sometimes it's a little bit slow to deliver. So it's a tricky area. But I can tell you exactly though. When is the time to sell a profitable stock, okay? And that is what I call the Koolaid, the Jim Jones Koolaid test. So for those of you that don't know, Jim Jones was a, everybody heard of the expression drinking the Kool-Aid, right? Don't drink the Kool-Aid. What does that mean? What does that mean, don't drink the Kool-Aid? Well, I'll tell you what it means. It's actually an expression that came to be used, I think, when was Jonestown? I think circa 80s, maybe the early 80s, right? Anyway, Jim Jones, who was this guy and what was Jonestown? So Jim Jones, and you guys can Google it, was a, some sort of like, minister, preacher type of guy, started off in in the Midwest and moved to, of course, this is, I think, in the late 60s, where do all the nut jobs go? San Francisco. And, oh, look at this. We're passing by Mar-a-Lago, home of the world's greatest president. Make America great again. Shit, I don't want to make any sudden moves. I might get shot by the Secret Service. Anyway, back to Jonestown. So Jim Jones goes to San Francisco. He sets up this church. You know, it was really some crazy, wacky stuff. And he gets involved with the politicians there, including, basically he had, it was some weird stuff that was going on there. He was essentially, he got a lot of power in San Francisco because he was able to deliver votes to the politicians. He was a white guy, interestingly, whose whole church was mostly black. So he basically would deliver the black vote to the politicians in San Francisco, and so he was very valuable to these guys. Anyway, he got a lot of he actually had a lot of power, and somehow or other he decided, hey, we're gonna move everybody to Guyana in South America. Because, I don't know, apocalypse, whatever it is. Oh, incidentally, let me bring up, Jim Jones, some of his big supporters were actually politicians, Democratic politicians, who are very active today. Now, San Francisco, of course, is all completely Democrats, so including Willie Brown, who became mayor, and the boyfriend of Kamala Harris. So there you go. So Kamala Harris is part of the Jim Jones massacre by 1 degree of separation. Only 1 degree of separation, and Joe Biden is 2 degrees of separation between killing, hundreds of people in Jonestown. All right. Anyway, so what is the deal with Jonestown? So anyway, everybody goes down to Guyana. I think a couple thousand people. They really followed him. They got on the plane from San Francisco, flew down to Guyana, and this is like late 70s. It wasn't like they had reviews of what is that called, Google Maps or whatever, not Google Maps, Yelp reviews, TripAdvisor. They didn't have any of that. These people were really taking a chance. Anyway, so they go down to Guyana. Long story short, something happens, I don't know, with Congress, some crazy shit. I don't even know what happened. But anyway, next thing you know, he tells everybody, look, we got to commit suicide, all right, mass suicide. Everybody, and Koolaid, he created these big, not jugs, I think barrels of Kool-Aid. He mixes in with cyanide. And apparently this Kool-Aid is poison, right? Cyanide is in there. Hundreds of people died. I mean, this was like a complete massacre. And then, like, some people were eaten by piranhas. I mean, it was a disaster. I mean, it was almost like a Joe Biden, Afghanistan evacuation. Anyway, hundreds of people died. I think it was close to 800 people, and that is where the expression came from. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. Okay, so Leonardo DiCaprio is actually going to be doing a movie about Jonestown, playing Jim Jones. What does this have to do with stocks? Here it is. The time to get out of these stocks, the time you want to get into stocks, let me back this up a little bit. The time you want to get in is early on, when nobody really is a believer. This is, let's say, when Jim Jones is still, like, in the Midwest, he only has a couple followers, nobody really believes, whatever. That's when you want to get on board. Now, when do you want to start thinking about getting out? You want to start thinking about getting out when, he tells everybody to get on the plane to Guyana. That is the time to start thinking about getting out. But And how do you know when is the time that the Guyana thing is about to happen? When you go on social media, on these investor forums, message boards, and you see all these people talking about, hey, this stock is gonna go to the moon. That's it. I'm buying more. I will never sell. Anytime you go on a site like, I don't know, Stockhouse, CEOCA, Investors Hub, any of that stuff, and you see people going crazy. But most importantly, here is the true sign. The true sign of a cult, of a thing that's about to, the Kool-Aid, passing the Kool-Aid, is right at that point when any type of dissenting opinion is blocked, or people just shut it down. Like if anybody says anything, not even negative, but anything expressing some doubt, these people are like, everybody really shouts them down and says they're short sellers, etc., etc., all that stuff. So that is when you know the Kool-Aid is being passed around. When you go on these message boards and any dissenting opinion is shut down, that means the Kool-Aid is being passed. Jim Jones is running wild and passing the Kool-Aid in Guyana. Now, we have seen it happen every time. I can go through a couple of stocks. I don't want to mention their names, it's a little sensitive here, but a couple of our past clients. Now again, look, you got to realize there's a huge difference between a business and a stock. Just because you have a great business and things are going great, it doesn't mean that the stock is going to keep going higher, because, we talk about this all the time. The market is forward looking, and most likely, a lot of the upside can be baked in. So there's a huge difference between a stock and a business. They are not related most of the time. They are not related most of the time. And, look, a lot of times when one of our client companies, one of our super stocks has increased 1,000% or more, or a couple 1,000%, at that point, usually takes about 6-10 months. Coincidentally, right around that time is, usually our contracts are 6 months. Sometimes we extend it a couple of times. And the point is, because it usually takes about 10 months to go fully to 10x, right? And there we go. Oh, here we go. Yeah. Right. So, look, by the time these things go to 10x, I mean, usually that's it. I mean, a lot of times the big move is over by then, right? My personal interest is in finding stocks that have a 1,000 to 10,000% upside, 10x to 100x. We want to get in on the ground floor, right? So, usually by the time something is up at 10x already or 20x, it's kind of usually time to take some profits, right? Now, a lot of times you can have things go 100x, right? That's tricky. But, yeah, so usually around something, once something is up 10x, I usually would tell people, hey, you want to take some money off the table. Definitely take your principal out, let the rest ride, and see how it goes from there. But for sure, the one thing that you will see is right around that time when something is going 10x, everybody all of a sudden starts drinking the Kool-Aid. Everybody starts passing along the Kool-Aid and saying, hey, this thing is gonna go to 1,000x. I will never sell this stock. I'm gonna retire with this. Never. When you hear people saying, I will never sell this, that is an indication of Kool-Aid time. When you see multiple people on message boards saying they're never going to sell this, and that the stock is going to go to, I don't know, 1,000, 100, it's crazy numbers. When people start saying that $1 stock is going to go to 50, that's usually near that's usually near the peak. You wanna get ready to start selling then, because the Kool-Aid is being passed around. Now, almost every time, I can tell you this, almost every time that we have seen this type of behavior, where people on message boards start saying that they will never sell this, and any type of dissenting opinion is all shouted down, then it is usually the time. By the way, I had a very interesting interview with Bruce Campbell, Canadian investor, big fund manager in Canada, and he called it something like the BNN effect or something, which, I guess BNN is a news channel in Canada. It's sort of like our CNBC. And when he goes on, and basically he's saying, look, as soon as people start talking about a penny stock on BNN, on these microcaps on BNN, that's usually the sign of a top. That's usually when you want to get out. And I absolutely have to agree with Mr. Campbell. That is usually the sign of a top. Of course, look, sometimes these things, they go from a nickel to 50 cents, right? But then from there, they can go to $1 or $2 or $2.50, as we've seen, even $5. Now, we haven't seen 100x yet, but I'm pretty sure we will in the next 18 months. I have some very good indications that this will be the case. But to make a long story short, you want to get out of these things when people start drinking the Kool-Aid. You got to get into these penny stocks when nobody likes them, when they're hated, when when nobody believes in the story. That is when you need to buy them. When you see on message boards and forums people saying, this is never going to go anywhere. It's when you see that type of thing early on in a campaign, so to speak, that is actually the time to buy. Because look, the big winners stocks climb a wall of doubt. The biggest winners, these stocks that go up 100x, those things are always, they start off when nobody knows about them, nobody understands them, they're hated, despised. What is that line that goes something like, all the great ideas first in the world, first nobody believes it, then they fight it, then they all take it as absolute truth, and then they fight you for even arguing with them that it may be too crazy, whatever. Anyway, that's pretty much how it goes. So that is that, my friends, is a wrap on when do you get out of these stocks. So you got to get out of these things when the Kool-Aid is being passed around. You don't want to be drinking. You want to say, not for me, or as they say in French, pas pour moi. Oui. So not for me. No Kool-Aid for me. Thank you.